you want to add? And say who your question is for, otherwise you may get answers from everyone.
Yes, I've got a question for Kristinn. So you made the point that there are several conditions that need to be satisfied in order to consider a system to be understanding something. And I wonder whether prediction is not enough. So for you, an important distinction is correlation versus causation. And I wonder, maybe models that are actually causal models are also the better predictors. So if you just take prediction as the sole criterion, you will include causal models too, and or the system will come up with causal models automatically if it wants to improve prediction. So I wonder what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think you're right. But so if you want a system that can essentially both predict things and achieve goals with respect to something, a better way to ensure that it actually can do that is to have it do both. But either in isolation is no guarantee that it can do the other. And same for, so if all you need is prediction, then that's fine. You don't even need true understanding, or should I say, good understanding. But if you want AGI, I don't think you can get away with just prediction, because prediction does not guarantee that you can do these other things.
Well, I guess his idea was that prediction would let you infer causality, right? Because the best predictive models would be the causal ones. So do you think that's true?
Possibly, but how could you be sure?
How could you form them? Because to get to causal models, you need to do some kind of experiments in the world.
Yeah.
So you will not probably get the causal models just from observation.
Yeah, unless you can look across many possible universes, which gives other issues. Yeah.
Boss, I have a question about using ahead in order to determine whether an action is appropriate. Doesn't it seems like, I think that's a good idea, but it does seem that it puts a lot of weight on the accuracy of your internal models of the world. And that the responsibility of getting those right in the simulation seems to be extremely challenging, both in level of detail and then how far forward do I go?
Yeah.
I mean, a Go player says it's a bad thing in the world to lose, but they can't look all the way to the end.
Yeah, of course, the simulation mechanism that I mentioned, there's a lot of deviling details there, of course. You might want to do, for example, some hierarchical kind of simulation where if I want to plan to fly from Switzerland to New York, I don't plan every possible step ahead. I just first come up with some very high levels, like first go to the airport, then take the plane, then get to my hotel, and then specify these as I go. Yeah, you're completely right. I skipped over many details there. What I can say now is that there is at least one system which implements a lot of these nasty details in a very principled way. So, but yeah, this is a long technical discussion. I can explain to you offline whatever details you are interested in, how to solve them. Thank you.
As an outsider, I see some hidden links among the different talks during this session. So the first lecture was about self-organization. Obviously, the term self-organization has been defined by the old cybernetics, actually by Roger Ashby, to define the terms of self-organization in two different contexts. And the second lecture was about understanding, or more precisely, understanding of understanding, the key concept of hands-on person in the second order cybernetics, to make a relationship between observer and observed quantities. And then a couple of times, implicitly, I saw that about causal models and somehow circular causality was in my mind. Again, another concept in the old cybernetics, and you should remember that AI was established just 60 years ago, but previously that was cybernetics, which became a dirty word in this country. However, maybe it might be some, maybe that time is mature to give some renaissance to this concept. And somehow it tacitly revitalized in the theory of complex systems, dynamical systems. So I don't know, again, as an outsider, whether isn't that time to give to take some ideas from complex system theory, dynamical system theory, or maybe even computation neuroscience. Philosophically, I do believe that the key concept should be hermeneutics, which is an art of the interpretation and uses the concept of hermeneutic circle. And generally, what I do believe, there were three separated dichotomies: the brain-mind monism dualism problem, the brain-computer analogy disanalogy, and the computational theory of the mind. And do believe that maybe it's a time to have a unified theory to brain, computer, and mind.
What is the question?
It's not a question, that's a comment. Thank you.
Question for Kristinn on task theory. It seems to me that the goal that you're trying to acquire here is to essentially normalise agents, tasks, and environments within an n-dimensional space, so that you can categorise and compare. The challenge, of course, is defining the dimensions of the n-dimensional space, and that seems it's going to be very subjective to different research fields. How do you suggest, because I think it's a great idea, but how do you suggest we define those dimensions in a way that's entirely general and can compare across totally different environments, agents and task types?
Well, I don't know exactly where it's going to end up. It could be as diverse as, almost not better than what we have now. But one way that we're exploring ourselves is to ground this in physics, so that at the very least, if we do nothing else, then at least we can talk more cogently about tasks that we want robots to do. And since no one else in the AI community seems to be very interested in this part, that was also very attractive for us as a starting point. But I have to emphasize that I think this is a huge task and we're very early stage at this point. But I don't see sort of how we can avoid it.
Right, okay.
No, there's no way. Hello. Testing.
Two people are asking.
Actually,
Yeah, why don't you bring it to whoever's there? You already said something.
yeah, but I was wrong because that was a good model.
We already know you were wrong.
I'm not so wrong.
Okay, you can, I guess, listen while the microphone is set up. I have two questions for Bas. One, to my understanding, your system will have something hard-coded and it will develop the understanding of it. And you quoted Asimov's law 0 of do not harm humanity. And he also came up with the 3 other laws, and nevertheless, most of his literature is about how these laws basically fail. So I think that should be addressed. How can you come up with a closed set of values that do not contradict and or fail? And the second question is, you presented a system that's stabilized and kind of doesn't change its mind. Eventually, like every new value will be judged in light of the existing values. And I suspect it's rather narrow-minded. In a way, you may have a narrow-minded system. Imagine that if you would have constructed it in the 70s, it is not very likely to approve gay marriage nowadays. So I think it should be addressed that in society, values are dynamic, and especially they change along time, whereas your system isn't as dynamic.
Yeah, so regarding your first question, What was the first question again? I had an answer to it, but then the
How
second
can you
question
have
to
a set, a
Oh, yeah.
closed set of values? Yeah.
So no, the first question was how much pre-programming is in there. Very little. You give a very small seed, as we call it, small set of granules in the beginning, just to bootstrap learning. But these can be defeated by experience again. So it's just to bootstrap the system. So very little pre-programming. About the stabilization of values, it's really about what you actually want from the system. I tried here to approach it from the viewpoint where we want more guarantees about the safety of the system to be sure and confident that it will continue to do the things in the indefinite future that we want to do it, even though we right now don't really know exactly what it should do, but we also want to be sure that as it grows, we want to grow with it, and at some point it should stabilize into something and not go onto really crazy paths in the very long future. So it is a trade-off between, as you say, open-mindedness and that we can be sure of actually doing the things that we think right now that it should be doing, even though we cannot really specify it yet, but we have some idea of what it should do, and this is what it should stabilize towards. So I agree, open-mindedness is a bit less high priority here than knowing now that it will do the things that we want now it to do.
So this brings up a question I had for you, actually, which, relates to open-mindedness to the extent that open-mindedness can be a valuable survival strategy. So if, from your own thinking about this, as encapsulated in this paper and otherwise, if you look at a recursive self-improver, which is sort of higher probability of being safe in the sense of preserving goals somehow, versus recursive self-improvers that there's not such a strong reason to believe are going to be safe. How do you see the comparison in terms of sort of evolutionary fitness in the actual world, if it's a competitive environment, and correlatedly in terms of computational resource usage? How much more expensive is it to have something closer to a guarantee of consistency, safety, or whatever?
Yeah, I think there's two issues here. The open-mindedness, I view really open-minded as to new experiences. So if you put it out there in a new environment, it should be open-minded enough to learn something about the new environment. But when it comes to values, that should be more stable than knowledge about new things.
Yeah, but more open-mindedness probably makes the system have more probability of survival in these scenarios, right?
So yeah, well, the values are not that related to survival, I think. It's really about constraining the behavior.
Yeah.
Survival is about...
Then the question is, what's the likelihood of a system that constrains its behavior to preserve its values will survive in a competitive environment with other systems?
There is a kind of meta value. What do you value more, the past or the future? What do you already know, or something that might come? And if you have more value on the future, you will tend to give up the knowledge of your experience much faster. If you have more value on your past, you will tend to be conservative and be suspicious about anything new that comes up. So it's also a value. What do you value more? The future or the past in relation to the present situation?
Yeah, and I guess that brings up a question I had for you, really, which is in terms of values and goals. There's a tendency, which I have often displayed as well, to model intelligences as goal-pursuing systems, partly because that's an easy way to model things, using the mathematical and conceptual frameworks that we have at our disposal. There are some intelligence-like systems around, like societies and ecosystems, that are only awkwardly modeled as goal-pursuing systems. Now, you wonder if hypothetical future intelligences that grow out of AGIs we create now, to what extent are they going to be sensibly modelable as goal-pursuing objective function, maximizing systems, versus just being some other kind of self-organizing mass energy process that grew out of these goal-preserving systems we created? I mean, how do you view that?
Yeah, I think it will be a kind of a combination between the two, but if we observe everything around, I think that goal-oriented kind of intelligence is pretty narrow. The fact that this is what we are able to figure out how to do and to model, etc., is one thing. But in relation to the evolution of life, and I think that in the evolution of life there is a manifestation of intelligence which is not necessarily goal-oriented, though we tend to tell a story as if it is goal-oriented. But these stories are always in retrospective. You see a made product, and you, okay, now we guess what's its purpose and how this purpose has evolved. But actually evolution doesn't work like this. And I think evolution is quite intelligent. So we need certain conceptual tools in order to capture this intelligence and maybe to harness it some way or to know more about it. So in the future, it's what I would go to search.
That's just a microphone.
There is a microphone.
Hi. In 1969-70, when I did my independent study under Minsky, that was a very fertile time for new thinking as people who were there at the time of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I basically came to the conclusion that it seemed to me the best way to protect ourselves from future machine superintelligence would be to basically have widely distributed I call them Veitas machines, which were powerful machine intelligences, but they were designed to be controlled by humans and have them widely distributed to keep humans in the loop as sort of major controllers of this artificial intelligence. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
So how do you make sure that this network of machines doesn't conspire together to enslave humanity?
Well, it's just you get a lot more human input to the issue.
I think the secret is interaction. The secret is interactions. As long as machine will interact with humans and humans will interact with machines, not on the basis of trying to control anything or to subject anything to certain power relations, there is a fair chance that some kind of a synergy, which is already existing today to a very large extent, will just go into the future. And I'm not so afraid about controlling intelligent machines, because eventually everything which is really intelligent cannot be controlled. And the idea that we can control is bound to fail, because we know from history that people try to control other people, and sometimes it works with disastrous consequences, and most times it doesn't work.
Right, but if machine intelligence is in the hands of relatively few people, that just greatly accentuates power inequalities.
Yeah, but when I'm thinking about an artificial intelligent agent, I'm first and foremost thinking about a living human being as a kind of existing model. So why it should be different? No one of us wants to be controlled. So.
Yeah, regarding to control, what I really want to see is like some self-control in these systems. That's why I was insisting on the stabilizing value system, such that the system is really compelled to even control itself. And this, how does it get this value system? Well, we make sure it develops this while we can still control it, and when it becomes super powerful, then it is sort of self-controlled after that.
A diversity in a population of diversity in a population of intelligent agents will tend to self-regulate. If we have population of diverse intelligences, they will tend to regulate each other and self-regulate as a system without having to impose any methods of control.
Just a short comment to that frequent interaction with humans. Maybe we need something like an attachment theory for AI. Because like for humans, the lesson of like do not harm humanity comes quite late in development. The first is like how to you learn to trust a human, to depend on a human, to love a human, and then like when you're a preschooler, you still like kick humans, right? And you invite humans, but you still you first know how to depend on one and to love one. So maybe those first interactions with those people that teach AI are really instructive also in this relational way. You can the AI can learn how to trust and so on.
Yeah, I agree in large lines with that. As I said in the conclusion, there's a great responsibility on the teachers of the baby AGIs in their early sensitivity periods.
Hello there. I have a question about the way we frame this question about just how safe can an intelligent system can be. It seems like when we are speaking about this, we are assuming that intelligence is the very same thing as an intelligent agent. But in traditional AI research, this has never been the case, right? So an expert system is not an intelligent system, like in any sense whatsoever. So that's just a misconception, it's a misuse of language, and it seems like this is really clouding your analysis. And in 2013, I defined two different kinds of intelligent agents. Suppose we really want to build an intelligent agent. We're really obsessed with it. We have this Frankenstein complex, right? We want to be Dr. Frankenstein. We want to build life because we're really obsessed.
Speak for yourself.
but some people are, right? Some people are obsessed with intelligent agents. So, a lot of researchers here, when they think of intelligence, the first thing they are going to tell you is the utility maximization agent. They think that's special, but this is really, I think just a behaviorist presupposition, and we know behaviorism is just wrong. So that's just, poor philosophy. But suppose that we want to build intelligent agents. In 2013, I defined two different kinds of intelligent agents.
Sorry, can we get to the question?
Yes, of course, because he just interviewed, I had to explain. Fully autonomous agents and semi-autonomous agents. In my opinion, if we make an agent fully autonomous, we must grant it freedom. What do you think about that? Because, the AGI-16 model is a full autonomous agent.
Yeah, but we don't want full autonomy. We want control.
Why?
Speak for yourself.
Let's vote.
But it's really easy to control make a semi-autonomous agent. You just delimit its physical, you give it physical bounds, and it will never move out of there.
Been tried before.
Nothing is purely autonomous, and what we get at is that if there is a bunch of autonomous agents that will start to interact with each other and negotiate with each other, and maybe modify the behavior of each other, but then we get something which is not necessarily a unidirectional power relation. So I'm all for giving full freedom, but I think also in terms of social systems, of a population of intelligent agents that are interacting, and then there are certain degrees of freedom and certain restrictions that emerge just in the course of interactions. And I'm fine with this. This is how human society is existing.
So, do you
Not
think that
everything is
the
good, but not
real
everything
purpose
is
of
evil.
intelligent agent research is to build an artificial person?
Not necessarily, because I think intelligence is much more than building persons.
Or artificial slave?
Neither, they're artificial supermind.
So control is an illusion.
Of course.
Well, what is the desired power relationship between humans and machines? That's the question.
Honest,
Absolutely.
is it?
It's on just the.
And a similar a child or an AI develops as a child does. It has cognitive development. It will eventually get a theory of mind. And as it acquires that theory, they'll understand how other people think. And as they develop their emotions, then they'll probably learn to respect or envy somebody else that has different values. And there'll be an internal cognitive dissonance with them if their values don't coincide with what somebody else has. Just your comments on that.
So yeah, there will be conflicts also among its own possible course of actions. Maybe there's no win-win situation when it's given certain tasks to do. It will need to weigh its options in hopefully in a good way. I don't think we can escape sometimes that there's just that there will be lose-lose situations sometimes, but it will just need to decide which of these is the least lose.
Question for Weaver. So the sort of coevolution dynamics that you're describing of interaction and cooperation, and I guess negotiation and trade and whatnot. Low battery. So this dynamic that you're describing tends to be with agents of approximately or comparable sort of power, or at least maybe some limited number of orders of magnitude of difference in power and utility. But what if a very small number of agents or one agent is just many orders of magnitude much more powerful than the others? It wouldn't really participate in that sort of dynamic. It would just dominate and potentially easily wipe the others out. No?
I think yes, but this is not a very probable scenario. If we look around, there were in the course of human history, there were forces that arose that just took advantage of increased power or capability, maybe it is economical or military, to take over and operate their power in order to achieve their goals or interests, etc. But these situations are never they can be long, but they are never eternal.
Well, Weaver, as a member of the Global Brain Institute, you could think about the possibility that future AIs could fuse together to make a unified mind in a way that wasn't possible in human history. Thus, you have a sort of hegemonic mindplex, or AI Borg mind that has more power than all the others. I mean, if we're talking about future possibilities, it's not clear that history of humans trapped in individual bodies is the optimal guide.
Yes, this is why I tend to emphasize diversity. So there always will be a multiplicity of views, of directions, of purposes, of interests, and kinds of intelligence. And this situation will safeguard against a kind of a superpower taking over everything and subduing all the rest or killing all the rest.
Or assimilating other.
Assimilating, yeah. And actually, in the science fiction genre, there was this idea of the Borg, which was actually extreme diversity, but made into one superpower. And this I always was quite suspicious about it. How it happens that so diverse elements come together so nicely to become really homogeneous and unidirectional and so on.
Where's the microphone?
It's on a battery dead.
Oh, it's dead? Okay.
So regarding the self-organization, understanding, integration, so everything together, my question is, so the idea of programming values into a baby robot and allowing it to grow versus understanding, the ability to understand values and the relationship of that to a self-preserving agent versus somebody who is goal-oriented seems like getting us into a direction where the self-preserving thing is more important than the ability to, than the requirement for putting in values from birth, pretty much. And the reason why I feel that's the case is because if you do have values put in a certain set of robots, whatever, and you could equally create intelligence which do not have those values today. And it is, and that self-preserving thing, I guess, is more fundamental because unless there is a self-preserving thing, how the self-organization set of the multiple intelligent artificial systems to collaborate to come up with something which would help develop its own societal values based on their scenario. I don't know how that would happen.
Well, I think the question has to do with the fact that any AI will have several goals at the same time and many constraints as well. And if it has, it wants to achieve some of these goals, but it simulates like what happens if I have like 100 kinds of plans to achieve these goals. I need to look ahead what will happen if I do them, and they will, some of them violate some constraints, some of them violate, none of them violate, if one of them violates no constraints, okay, that's clear, it should do that. But if all of them violate some constraints and with several different kinds of probabilities, it needs to weigh them, it needs to weigh its options. That means it's basically in a lose-lose situation anyway, so then it just needs to do its best effort.
Yeah, but do people look at how to understand values of somebody, some other agent, some other human being, more than representing? I mean, I think it's easier to build than...
Yeah. Well, the building and testing for levels of understanding, this is really something that has not been properly done yet, and this is exactly what Kristinn and I were arguing for. This is something we need to get clearer. So yes, this is preliminary work, and it's super important that we get this right, that we understand what understanding is, and that we understand how to teach understanding to our AIs and how to test for it. This is very important.
Hi, I have two questions, one to Kristinn and one to you. First, about understanding. You mentioned the importance of updating your models, right? And that as opposed to having a static model. But I would say a lot of about super intelligence or about like really, really intelligent AGI is almost this kind of notion of omniscience. So do you agree with either that as the AGI gets more intelligent, at one point it can stop updating its models and it's just omniscient, or do you not agree with the notion of omniscience? And then the second question would be regarding the encoding values. I think, as was mentioned by the girl who left already, she pointed out the importance of dynamic values, right? Because society, well, hopefully progresses. But on the other hand, there's also, even further than that, also the notion of not only dynamic values, but also of kind of checking where the values came from, because you now have so many theories or like so many psychological studies that suggest that a lot of them are based on prejudices or preconceptions or biases that we would not like the AGI to have, supposedly.
Okay, so if I go first, I'm not so interested in highly improbable scenarios, and I think at the present state of knowledge, any discussion about superhuman intelligence is philosophy. I think we'll have all, I mean, that doesn't mean we can't talk about it and think about it, but what we say is probably going to be wrong, mostly wrong. So, but the question is with respect to sort of a hypothetical superhuman AI that has been around for a long time, has acquired a lot of good, correct causal models of the universe. I'd be hard pressed to say that it could stop, or it depends on its purpose for being, I guess. But let's say it's just hungry for knowledge, then you have to have an enormous amount of computing power to have concluded how the universe works. I mean, basically what you have then done is duplicate the universe at all levels of detail. I don't see how that's really possible. I mean, it sounds like doubly infinitely hard.
Okay, so regarding the open-mindedness of values, I acknowledge there's a possible concern there that it might not be open-minded. I think this is due to that I'm more putting more priority in the safety aspect there. I just want to make sure that, you know, the more open-minded it is, the less you can say about what it will really do in the very long-term future. On the other hand, if it really turns out to be not open-minded with regard to its values, I think you did something or you specify them too much. So if it really is against gay marriage for the next million years, then probably what you really said in the beginning, when it was still sensitive to that, like gay marriage is bad. But what you should not say this explicitly. You should give some more probably underspecified values of, you know, humans should have freedom of choice. They should do what they feel best about. And in the beginning, maybe this will then turn the agent sort of against gay marriage, given what the little things that it has seen so far. But as it learns more about the world, it will find out, no, this is actually...
So how's your progress on a complete formalization of positive human values?
What is it? What is in that list?
There is no such thing.
Yeah. Feels like there's only one, self-preserving, other than that.
Oh, bad philosophy can kill you.
Creationist
philosophers always have these ideas.
So I think we should wrap up soon, so it's time for a lunch break. We can take 0 more questions. Thanks everyone.